Hey guys, welcome back to another video with VS Leather and Card. My name is Victoria. Today I'm going to be making a watch band for my Fitbit. It was time. I needed another one. I'm starting off carving this pattern. It's pretty simple. It's just a sunflower off to the side, two feathers, and the letters of my logo. I went with this wide design around where, the size of your wrist would be, just because I really wanted to be able to design more. So here I'm tooling. This leather is, I want to say it's an 8 to 9 ounce veg tan. It's pretty thick, especially for a watch band, but I don't know. I started tooling on this and I have found it very hard to tool anything lighter. I decided to speed up this part of the video out of all the others pretty much because it does take a long time. When we get further down into the video, you're going to see how much time it actually takes to do some of the things that we have to do to this leather. But I'm just going and making my decorative cuts now, and that's what they look like so far. I'm going to be using the Fiebing's Pro Dye in the color black and a paintbrush I've had for years to apply that. I'm really only trying to dye the background black here. I'm going over the threads that are white just to blend them in a little bit further. I'm taking a number 2 edge beveler here and I'm just going around the edges. I'm being careful of my thread. This really is a prototype. It was just making sure that the fit was right, that the style I actually liked. So, I really was prepared to just kind of cut it up and get my hardware back out. At the same time, though, I really like how this watch band turned out, and I will be having some in my next shop update on March 21st. I think it's the 21st, if you're interested. There's going to be a bunch of different kinds of styles and designs. The hardware will already be in your watch band. You're just going to have to put it into your watch and go from there. So now I'm just going to burnish the edges. When you do something like leather work, you really want to have your edges done. It just seals them, and that's going to help all of the fibers of the leather stay down, stay put, and just give you a really smooth edge. I have backed this watch band with a black suede, and that toconol, it's going to really mesh the two types of leathers together into a seamless piece of leather. I'm just using a burnishing stick and I'm just going to keep adding the toconol, then working it into the leather, and then I'll burnish. When you're burnishing, it's not about how fast you go. It's not about how hard you press. It's about the friction that you're causing. You're essentially burning the leather down, which is why you'll notice it seems to get a little bit darker once we're done. Now, I didn't mention it before, but the suede that I'm using is about 3 to 4 ounces. I grabbed a piece that was kind of on the thinner side, and then I rubbed it out to get the stretch mostly gone from it, just because I didn't want to have to deal with stretching later. I used, I think it was a 210 thread. It's a waxed thread. And I saddle stitched at the top and bottom of each side of the watch band. I slowed this part of the video down because you really want to pay attention to your edges, just because when they come undone, it's very unsightly. So if you take the time now to get your edges properly done how they should be, then your product's not only going to last longer, it's going to look even better when it's done. I did not show installation of the hardware because, like I said, I wasn't sure of the cut, the fit, or the pattern when I was making the video, and I thought it best to not confuse anyone at the moment. If you would like a pattern for this style of watch band, not the tooling pattern, but just a pattern of the cut you would need, let me know. Leave a comment and I'll see about maybe uploading that pattern and making it available to you guys. But like I was saying before, I will have these watch bands, at least a few of them, in my next shop update. If you will go to vsleather-card.com, they're going to be in the collectors section. Now I'm going to be moving on to painting this watch band. I have a bronze and a color called South Beach from Angelus paints. These are acrylic leather paints. I've heard you can use whatever kind of acrylic paint you want. These just seem to adhere a little better. First, I'm going to start off with the metallic bronze. I'll go ahead and link the things that I'm using as well. But my goal with this metallic bronze is really just to kind of backlight, just to give a shadow, a bit of depth, a bit of dimension that my antique isn't going to give. And it is a brown for the most part. It's a bronze, but it's going to just give a little more shine when it hits the light. I'm just using a super small paintbrush, and you really do not want a lot of this paint on your brush when you go to paint the leather, because for every glob that you have, it's going to stay a glob and it's going to just chip off of the leather. You want it to lay flat, and it's better to make several small, several thin coats and several passes than it's going to be to try to get it all done in one go. But for my purposes and just trying to create a bit of depth and shadow, we're just going to need to go over it one time. I've really noticed that Angelus paints are flexible. I have not used other leather paints, but I do like how the Angelus adhere to the leather and stay on the leather. And this is after antiquing and finishing. So now that we've got that piece done, we're going to move to the other piece. This is going to be the part that hooks into the buckle on the watch band. I've already pre-punched my holes. Like I said, this is my watch band, so I know where my holes go. And I like mine a little bigger just because it gives plenty of clearance for the buckle to go through properly, easily. And, that's just how I like my watch bands. This process is one of the faster processes when it comes to leather work, and it has taken me this long to get this far. Maybe in upcoming videos, I will slow down my tooling because I don't know. I started out YouTube creating shorts, but I really don't like having my work reduced to 3 and 4 seconds. It takes thousands of strikes with a mallet and countless tools sometimes to be able to create the designs that you see. I would say that for anyone getting started out in leatherwork, just keep going. Just keep going because you're only going to get better. It can be as hard as you want it to be. Your patterns, your designs can be as complicated as you want. But at the end of the day, they can also be as easy and as simple as you want. Just keep going. You will find what makes you happy. I'm just using this teeny tiny brush to, just go over the VSLC that I have here on the watch band. When you're doing this kind of work, I have gone off of the edge before. You cannot dye over paint. So it's easier if you just let it dry and then little by little try to chip it off with maybe like tweezers. That's what I've done before. Other than that, you really want to try to be careful. And if you don't want to add an extra step, just be careful. Having an appropriate size paintbrush for what you're doing really will make all of your leather work easier. I mean, having the proper tool will make all of your leather work easier. Like I said, this is one of the faster parts of leather work, and it has taken me this long so far. I say all of that in short to say, appreciate leather work for what it is. The fact that it is handmade and the fact that leather doesn't come like this. So now that we're done with the VSLC, we're going to go over to the feathers and just add in some of that really pretty South Beach color just to kind of brighten them up. I'm trying to stay out of my decorative cuts when I'm applying this paint just because I'm adding so little of it to such a tiny area that it could possibly fill those cuts that I've made. And then my antique wouldn't be able to stay in those cuts. So I'm just adding just a little bit of color just to these feathers. I'm going to do the other one next. And then the they look like triangles, but it's a mule's foot. Where I tooled earlier, I will also add the South Beach color to each of those triangles inside. The top of my watch band does not have feathers, so I want to, really bring those two together so they look similar in design and style. And that's how I found to do it, was to add the South Beach to those triangles on the top and on the bottom of the strap. As far as antique goes and when you should do it and when, what you should do first, painting or antiquing, it is kind of technically up to you. When I'm using something like a bright gold or when I really want my white to come through, I will put a base coat down first and then I will go ahead and antique. And if I need to brighten it up, because let's say my leather was, really felt like soaking up antique color, even after I finished it, basically, I use the Fiebing's leather balm with atom wax. That's really what I like to use prior. I'm not going to use it on this watch band though, because I really wanted to deepen the tone of the lighter leather. Even at that, if you add that first, get your finish on there and get it to a shine, and then you add your antique color. Even if you have your base coat of, let's say, white down, you may want to brighten that up. After that, though, you definitely need to seal in all of your paint work. Otherwise, it will chip off, it will scratch off, and it will no longer be a bright white like you wanted originally. So we're just going to finish up this painting. Now, because of the funny design here, I did not add a keeper first. I'm going to add that last, just because I wasn't sure that I wanted one to begin with. But then when I decided I did, I had already installed my hardware. If you make a regular size watch band, you will want to make your keeper and then slide it on before you add the buckle for your watch band. I'm just going around my edges here with the black dye just to make everything cohesive. And I'm gonna try to show you how to thread a needle. Okay, so you'll put the thread through the eye of the needle, pull back a little bit, and then you're going to pierce through the middle of the thread with the needle. What that's going to do is it's going to create basically a knot. It's just going to let your thread not fall out of the needle while you're using it. And I'm just going to do a simple stitch. This is not a saddle stitch. It's not anything. I'm just trying to get these two pieces of leather to stay together. This is what I've decided my keeper should look like. And I'm going to go out of frame here a little bit, but it'll be okay. I almost put that keeper on the wrong side. Now, when you're making your keeper, you absolutely want it to be big enough to receive the other end of the watch strap. If it's not, you're just going to be frustrated. So measure, stack your two pieces on top of each other and get an idea at least of how long you're going to need your keeper. I'm just trying to get it all lined out here, set up, and then we'll add it on to the watch strap. At this point, I think it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm awake generally pretty early. My kids are still sleeping, so I'm doing the voiceover now. But yeah, forgive the video quality in that clip there. Essentially, what I'm doing is I'm showing you the sewing style or the sewing pattern. You're just going to cross your needles over. I don't know what size needles these are, but I just picked them up from a Tandy. They've worked really well. I broke a few. Other than that, these last few that I have remaining have worked well. As long as you're not, moving them side to side when they're next to each other, they should be okay. They shouldn't break. But then, you just want to pull tight, get that thread in there, that waxed cord. It's thick and, but it's going to do its job. It's going to hold. I'm not noticing yet, but I accidentally pulled my leather up when I pulled the threads tight. I'll fix it here in a minute. You don't want your leather to not lay flat, especially when it's going to be against someone's wrist, just because that's going to cause irritation and it's not going to fit well. So we're just going to get that leather to lay flat. And continue sewing. Okay, at this point, I'm going to need help pulling that last needle through. So I just grabbed a pair of pliers and helped it along there. Now, I don't really like to burn my threads on the outside of the project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send them through the back and then we'll snip them and burn them at the top there. I was saying earlier that it's going to create friction on your client or your customer's wrist. That's not really a desired thing. So if you send them to the back and then you do your tying or cutting and burning, that's your customer won't be affected by that. I went with a really oversized, I guess you would say, watch buckle. It's about an inch, just over an inch wide. I really like the masculine look of this particular buckle. But like I said, this is a prototype and I test all my stuff on myself first. It's more, it lets me know what I need to fix in the pattern or design. So we'll just get those threads burned down there. Again, sorry for going out of frame. It's like 4 a.m. right now. But if I'm in my office, I'm going to work. That's just kind of how I live. Now you get to watch me struggle with this watch band, not because it's the inappropriate size or anything, but because I just struggle putting watch bands on. The one that it came with, that this Fitbit originally came with, took me a couple days to get on there. So I'm going to employ the use of one of my smallest screwdrivers. You can see that the thread on the back is white. If you wanted to go the extra step, you could just use black thread. You could use whatever color thread. You could use a turquoise thread or a golden thread. You could even just dye the back of that thread. You're just going to want to make sure that you rub off any excess dye because the thread is waxed. It's going to want to resist some of that dye. Finally, we got that part on. This next part takes me a little bit longer. If you're going to be making your own pattern for a watch band, make sure you measure your hardware. You don't want to end up with something, you've got it all tooled, sewn, ready to go, and then it doesn't fit. Measure twice, cut once. In case you guys didn't know, you can find us here on YouTube for one. Our website is vsleather-card.com. You can find us on Instagram at vsleather.card. We're on Facebook and on Pinterest as well. You can find us pretty much across the internet. I'm still struggling. And you can see the hardware fits perfectly fine. That's just me struggling. I basically have no nails, so employing the smallest screwdriver is my best option at this point. I think I've about got it now, but tug on it back and forth, make sure it's in there. Perfect. Now that I'm finished, my suede is pretty dirty. It has, leather pieces in it and all that. So we're going to go ahead and get one of the lint rollers and we're just going to clean it up. It's going to clean right up. I wanted to line it with suede, not because I couldn't just leave it raw or like a roughed leather on the other side, because I could have, and you could just paste it with some Tokonol. But at that, I really wanted to stick with the black. And sometimes when you dye the back of leather, and then finish it, it still wants to kind of come off a little. I just didn't want to deal with that part of it. So even at that, this is a prototype. I figured I'd just go with something easier. So now I'm just encouraging the watch band to bend around just so that way when I put it on, It's not that difficult. I did spritz a bit of water on the top. I have not given this a final sealant coat yet. Like I said, a prototype, I was ready to cut it up. But I think this watch strap came out beautifully. If you think the same, I will have these watch straps available in my next shop update. At that, let me know if you want a pattern. And I will see about editing or uploading rather that to this site. There's the proof, 4:15 a.m. Now I'm just showing you the fit. It seems to fit nicely. I like the wide sides, and this is a new favorite pattern. Thank you so much for joining me today on another video for VS Leather and Card. Bye.